All right, so we have 2.8, inverse of a sum and simplifying. So let's start with the property of -1. It's also the additive inverse. So basically what it says is if I multiply a by -1, I get the opposite of a. I get negative a. So -1 times a gives you the additive inverse of a. Okay, so remember that the additive inverse talks about the fact that if you have an a and the negative a, if you add them together, you should get 0. So the opposite of the number you're dealing with is the additive inverse. So here's showing the -1 property so that you can see how you change to the additive inverse. All right, let's go ahead and look at the inverse of a sum. Basically what you're looking at is a distributive property. So I try to kind of think of this as just part of the distributive so I don't have to remember one more thing. So basically remember that even though there's no number here, there's always a 1. So you're distributing that -1 to everything inside the parentheses. So -1 times a would be negative a. -1 times b would be negative b. So you get negative a plus negative b, or what would be a little more appropriate would be negative a minus b. So I don't expect you to remember exactly this name, the inverse of a sum property, but it's basically just remembering that anything outside of the parentheses would be distributed inside if it's addition or subtraction inside the parentheses. All right, so let's do a couple problems together. We'll start with the first one. So again, remember the fact that there's that 1 in there. So what I would expect to see on your paper is this. I would expect you to see that you've put the 1 there. You've drawn the arrows to show the distribution. I'd like you to show the step. So -1 times x plus -1 times 2. And then you clean up your last thing here. -1 times x would be negative x. -1 times a positive 2 would be a -2. So a positive and a negative would be a negative. So my answer would be negative x minus 2. All right. So again, we have another negative to distribute. I'm going to put that as -1. I want to see when you do your answers, I want to see the work and I want to see the arrows. So -1 times 5x. There's a minus here, minus -1 times 2y plus -1 times 8. Get rid of all those parentheses, so I get -5x. A negative times a negative is a positive. 1 times 2y is 2y. Negative times positive and negative, 1 times 8 is 8. Okay. Again, when you do your problems, I'd like to see this step where you've changed it to a -1. You've used the distribution arrows to show where you're going. You show this step here before you finalize your answer. All right. Same thing again. -1. Distribute that -1. I'm going to do this one right below it just because I think I won't fit it over here. -1 times -4a. Plus -1 times 3b plus -1 times 10. So a negative times a negative is a positive. 1 times 4a would be 4a. Negative times a positive would negative. 1 times 3b would be 3b. -1 times 10, or a negative times a positive, would be a negative. 1 times 10 is 10. So what you should see is that multiplying and following through with that negative is changing the sign of everything inside. So it was -4a, ends with a 4a. Positive 3b, negative 3b. Positive 10, negative 10. Okay. So let's do one problem. This one adds kind of a little bit of extra in there. So again, we're still looking at -1. And I'm going to go ahead and rewrite it down here a little bit just so I have enough room to draw my arrows. Didn't give myself enough room. This is the number right in front of the parentheses. So I'm distributing that number through. So the 5x, nothing happens. I get, it's a positive 3x and a negative 1. So negative 1 times 3x plus negative 1 times 9. All I need to make sure is that I have negative 1 and a positive 3x. I could switch that order if I felt like it, but I have to have at least the 3x with a negative 1. So now a negative and a positive is a negative. 1 times 3x is 3x. A negative times a positive is a negative. 1 times 9 is 9. Again, seeing that it changed from positive 3x to negative, positive 9 to negative 9. Last step is collecting our like terms. 5x minus 3x would be 2x minus 9. Now we're going to look at a few more difficult problems. So we'll start with this one. Same idea. This is a negative 1. Nothing's going on up here. And if you think to our order of operations, our first order of operations says parentheses. So we want to get rid of those parentheses. We're going to do that by distributing that negative 1 to everything inside the parentheses. So negative 1 times 2y minus negative 1, sorry about that, times the 3x minus negative 1 times 4. So I'm moving that negative and that negative down. So nothing happens to my 5x, nothing happens to my 2y. Negative times a positive is a negative. 2y times 1 is 2y. Negative times a negative is a positive. 1 times 3x is 3x. Negative times a negative is a positive. 1 times 4 is 4. So now I'm almost done. I just have to collect my like terms. Here's a 5x and a 3x. They're both positive, so I can add those together and get 8x. I like to cross them off so I know I've used them. Negative 2y and negative 2y would be negative 4y. And I'm left with that 4. Let's try another one. All right. Boom. All right, so again, this time it's a little different because it's not just a negative. They gave us a number. So first we're going to do 5a, and then we're going to distribute. Negative 3 times this and negative 3 times this. So you can start with negative 3 or positive 7a, doesn't matter. Negative 3 times positive 7a. This is a minus negative 3 times 6. So that minus moved down, and then the 6 went there. So now let's clean up our parentheses. Negative times a positive is a negative. 3 times 7a would be 21a. Negative times a negative is a positive. 3 times 6 is 18. Clean up my like terms, so collect my like terms. I have negative 21 and positive 5. So I should get negative, anybody got it, 16a plus the 18. This one's a little more involved. This one has a lot of parentheses and brackets and braces. Remember that you're just going to treat them just like parentheses, and you have to start with the innermost parenthesis first. So first I'm going to do this though. This side only has this little piece right here. So 3 times 4 plus 3 times 2. So I don't have to think about that. Here I have all these parentheses going on. So there's outside, outside. Here's the innermost. So I'm going to go ahead and copy the rest. Here I have 11. So negative 11. 12 plus 6 minus. Now I have to do inside of right here, and 4 minus 11 would be negative 7. So I have 7 minus negative 7. A minus minus would be a plus. So now inside these parentheses I have 14. So 12 plus 6 minus 14. And so I get a positive 4. Now this next problem, I'm going to start it for you, and then I'm going to expect you to complete it and take it to school. tomorrow and show me that you have a completed problem. So again, we're going to be looking to get rid of those parentheses and brackets and all the good stuff. So inside this parentheses, I can see I'm going to be distributing that 3 in here. So bracket is 3 times 4 plus 3 times 2. Then plus 2x. Minus parenthesis or bracket. Looks like here I'm distributing the 4 to the y and the 2. So 4 times y plus 4 times 2. Here I'm distributing the negative 3. So it's a positive y, so I could put plus minus 3 times y minus negative 3 times 2. Move that over just a little teeny tiny bit. All right. So now let's get rid of as much as we can in this next step. So we have a parentheses or a bracket. 3 times 4 is 12 plus 6 plus 2x minus 4y. Here's a 4 times 2, which is 8. Positive times a negative is a negative 3y. Negative times a negative is a positive 6. So now what you need to do is you need to collect like terms, distribute your negative, and add both of them together. Make sure you bring that with you tomorrow. At least have it tried and ready to show me you tried the problem and you took it a few more steps than what I have there, or showing me that you completed it.